Hi folks, welcome to your MWIS Friday Planner in association with Ellis Brigham. Now we're back under the influence of Atlantic weather patterns, south to southwesterly winds sweeping across the British Isles in the days ahead. A series of frontal systems coming through with some heavy rainfall, the risk of flooding in places across western regions, and spells of gales across the mountains as well. Stormy winds at times. There's some quieter days in there. Sunday, Monday may be the best of the shorter range, and indications further ahead in next week looks as though higher pressure is trying to build. Now a quick glance at total rainfall first of all, and this just a broad view of what's happening in the next 4 or 5 days. This is the total through until early Wednesday, and it's from a fairly coarse resolution computer model, but what we can tell from this at least is a lot of moisture to come across those western mountains, the southwestern Highlands, southwest Scotland, Dumfries and Galloway, to some extent the Lake District as well, and particularly West and South Wales. Even this modelling picking up on totals 75 towards 100 millimetres. The reality is, with the hills in the way, that total across the mountains could be considerably more. So very saturated ground underfoot in those areas, and that risk of some flooding as well. So be aware of that one in those western regions. The further north and east you go, the much lower totals of rain that you'll see. Some of that rain already happening and falling through the day today, Friday. There's more to come on Saturday as well, I'm afraid. We've got the next Atlantic frontal system coming through, and that already wet across Wales from the word go, and that rain piling its way northwards. So for Scotland, you'll start largely dry across the Highlands, but that rain will advance ever northwards. The far north may be getting away well onwards into the afternoon, but heavier rainfall will set in across the southern half of the Highlands, at least into the afternoon. And it just continues across much of England and Wales. A bit patchier the further towards the Peak District and the eastern side of the Pennines that you go. It's a windy day as well, already nearly storm force across the mountains of Wales in the morning. That will continue much of the day, and those strengthening gales or upland severe gales will spread further into Scotland as well. So not a very pretty Saturday all told. Now that same wriggle of a front is still hanging around across England and perhaps Wales into Sunday. The main energy of it has diminished somewhat. Pressure has just built a little bit. I still suspect there'll be a few areas of rain around the Peak District and perhaps the Pennines, but tending to fizzle out with time. Maybe a few bits of dregs of rain or showers just coming in to westernmost hills around the Irish Sea and around the west coast of Scotland, but much of the Highlands could well see a largely dry day, and we're just back into slightly cooler air by this stage. Temperatures and freezing levels will have come down somewhat. Wind speeds have come down as well, still blustery at times across some higher terrain, and the risk of near gale or gale force winds across some exposed spots in northwest Scotland. Still a legacy of low cloud as well, some breaks to be found typically to the north and northeast of any of the higher hill groups. Now mentioning freezing level, this chart then just takes you through the freezing level sequence, the height of 0 Celsius in metres. We have the scale on the bottom, and it's all looking rather toasty through Saturday as that southerly airflow is drawn up. But indeed, temperatures in the lowlands across central eastern England, 14-15 degrees Celsius is quite possible. With that airflow from the south, that's not particularly uncommon for February, but what a change from where we have been in recent weeks. Notice the bluer colours though developing across the western side of the British Isles. That's the lowering of the freezing level. So by Saturday night and into Sunday, those temperatures on the Scottish mountains getting back down to freezing or just below. I suspect we see a freezing level through Sunday daytime around 900-1,000 metres across the Scottish Highlands, typically just above freezing point, I think, for the highest mountains of England and Wales. Maybe as low even as 800 metres just locally around western Scotland, typically a bit higher freezing level, more towards the Cairngorms. As we go into the start of the new week, a relatively quiet start under a weak ridge of high pressure. Still the remnants of a front likely to be across the eastern side of England, but that looks likely to be away from most of the mountain regions. So the prospect of a dry day with some cloud breaks pretty widely towards higher slopes. Some western hills still maybe struggling somewhat. A few dregs of showers, perhaps just grazing the west coast of Scotland where that front is nearby. Temperatures Temperatures still relatively cool, I suppose, not cold especially, but that freezing level staying at around 900, 1,000 metres. So I suppose just be aware of icy conditions on those very highest tops, especially in Scotland. There's still that substantial lying snow on the higher terrain. We do then just need to watch what happens to the southwest as we go into Monday evening and night, because the next weather system is on the way, and that's likely to bring another batch of very wet and windy weather into the middle part of the week. By Tuesday, we've got a real conveyor belt of fronts coming in on a strong south to southwesterly flow, the risk of gales or severe gales across the mountains by this stage again, and some further prolonged heavy falls of rain. And always these straight line south-southwesterlies with a trail of fronts tend to be rather ominous in terms of heavy rainfall. We need to watch it carefully just to see how this develops in the next few days, but it does have that scope for producing some more big rainfall totals across those more west and southwestern facing mountains. It will all just depend exactly where that little sequence of fronts finally parks itself. Just on its northern side, on its forward edge, with temperatures still relatively low, the scope for some snowfall across the highlands before the milder air tries to come back in. Temperatures then mildest across England and Wales, coolest across the west and north of Scotland. By Wednesday, that front is still around, eventually clearing as a cold front from the west, so after a sustained spell of heavy rain, some clearance may just begin to develop from the west as we go through Wednesday. Timing a bit uncertain, so we just need to watch how that one develops for now. There's the risk of some further flooding in places across those western areas if this rainfall event does develop again by that time. Temperatures then lowering once more as that front clears, so you'll see freezing levels back down below 900 or 1,000 metres, I suspect, at least across Scotland. And just looking towards the later part of the week, and although there's difficulty with detail, we can get a few trends out of what's going on. Relatively cool air stays in place across northern Britain into Thursday, still fairly mild towards the south and southeast of the country. A few bits of showers, maybe some snow and some hail across Scottish mountains coming in from the west around Thursday, and the indication of higher pressure just starting to build itself by the end of the week. The signal of that has been there for a little while, and it's still there in many of the forecasting models that toward the end of the month higher pressure will try and have a go. So just the suggestion in the longer range towards next weekend that quieter conditions may well be in existence. It will depend just how far in that high can build and whether any Atlantic systems still interfere with, say, northwest Scotland, or whether those get steered much further away towards Iceland. But just that building story of something a bit quieter, and temperatures, I suppose, fairly average for the back end of February, neither particularly mild nor especially cold, but a touch of frost overnight would be likely. Now, if you want a bit more weather, don't miss our webinar on Monday night, courtesy of Ellis Brigham. We'll be just chatting through all aspects of mountain weather forecasting and taking a few questions along the way as well. I think the Zoom part of that has now filled up, but you can still watch on Facebook, and it'll be on the Ellis Brigham YouTube channel as well. So check that one out, and hopefully some interesting bits of weather chat for you there. For today, though, that's been your MWIS Friday Planner in association with Ellis Brigham. Thanks for watching. As always, bye for now.